Well, hello, Southern Oregon. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema. I'm a broker here in beautiful Southern Oregon with John L. Scott Real Estate. So glad to have you back with us today. We have a really interesting discussion today about title insurance and escrow. We have Brandy Jennings from First American Title. She's the Jackson County sales manager here locally at First American, and she's going to talk to us about some really interesting things. We've got just in general what title is and what escrow is, because title and escrow together, they're two separate activities. Having them together under one roof is an Oregon thing. If you're from somewhere else, then you don't have that set up. And with so many people moving here from out of state, we thought it would be great to have Brandy come on and kind of talk about what's different about Oregon title and escrow, but also some real specific things like, what if you have a power of attorney? What if you are a power of attorney? How does that change your real estate transaction? What if you have your property in a trust? What should you do to get ready for that? What are the expectations that the title and escrow people are going to have of you if your property is in a trust? So we're looking forward to a really educational conversation with Brandy Jennings of First American Title here in Medford. Before we get to that interview, want to give a quick update about the local market. Now, maybe you noticed this, maybe you didn't, but this week, what did we see happen? A zillion price changes. And it wasn't just in the upper price ranges, it was across the board. It wasn't just in one neighborhood, it was a bunch of different neighborhoods across the board. Sweeping price changes, what does that mean? That's the market adjusting right under our nose. The prices may have been too high to start with. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the inflation is taking a bite out of the buyer's ability to pay. Maybe it's a combination of both. I vote it's a combination of both, but I'm happy to see the market is adjusting. There's still buyers out there buying. There's still more people putting their house on the market. Yay, we may actually end up with a somewhat normal market here before too long, and that would be most welcome. So it's one of those unusual moments where it's a good time to sell and it's a good time to buy. And if you're used to 2.0 interest rates and you're just really shocked at 5, just remember, us older folks can tell you that 5 and 6% was not a bad deal for buying a house, but it is an adjustment. It's certainly much more money than people were used to spending even 2 months ago. But if you're out there looking for a house, keep looking. If you're thinking of putting your house on a market with 2 more interest rates coming this summer, it's still a good time to sell. All right. With that in mind, let's have a quick word from our sponsor, and we're going to talk to Brandy Jennings, First American Title. Do not touch that dial. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema, broker John L. Scott here in beautiful Southern Oregon. And today we're so excited to be visiting with Brandy Jennings of First American Title. Welcome, Brandy.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Well, we're just so excited because I think the title and escrow parts of real estate transactions, everybody knows they're going to have you involved, but they don't really know like what you do, why you're here, why it matters. So let's take a quick minute, just introduce yourself, and let's talk a little bit about the purpose of a title company.
Okay, so my name is Brandy Jennings. I'm the Jackson County sales manager for First American Title. I've been in the industry here in the Valley for over 20 years. I worked in lending and I worked in escrow, really involved with the Realtor Association. And when we had a Women's Council of Realtors here, I was on the board for them, along with on the board for the Oregon Escrow Council. I love this industry. It's a lot of fun, and I love the company that I work for. We are always winning great awards like Best Places to Work. We just received that for the 7th year in a row.
Yeah, you do.
Fortune 500 company. It's wonderful. I've been here 8 years, and yes, I love the Valley. I was born here. I wasn't raised here completely. My dad was in the military, but now that I've been back, I think.
So you're a real local, not like the rest of us that have just been here a long time.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the role of a title company, and also for those people listening that are from other states. Oregon has escrow and title under the same roof, but let's talk about title first.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah. So across the nation, they do things differently. Some places have the title part of it searched from a title company, and then the escrow portion of it is taken care of by an attorney. Some places will have one title or a title company over here and then an escrow company over here. And we're lucky that in Oregon, we do it all in one place. So the title side of things, we're searching the property, we're checking for ownership and anything that may be attached to the property or attached to that owner. And when you have a transaction where you're buying or selling, we create a preliminary title report that tells you who is the owner, what are the taxes, what's attached to the property, what's attached to the property because of the owner. And we put out a nice report for everyone to review and approve before we move forward in a transaction. We provide you title insurance to make sure that when we do insure this property, that this property is yours, so that if something was to come across later, maybe there's an error that showed up that no one knew of and said, oh, this property was supposed to be left to them, you can know that your new buyer is in ownership. Sorry.
That's okay. We just appreciate your time. So the preliminary title report is a very interesting document, and it comes out pretty early on in the transaction. But what I'd like for you to touch on briefly as a quick little sidebar is that you don't have to have a transaction to find out what's going on with your property as far as ownership, liens, and easements. So can you speak to that briefly?
Absolutely. So our title department is here to create reports for you. If you are wondering what is attached to my property, do I have any liens or judgments against me? So there are different types of reports that you can purchase. One is the biggest report, which will give you everything that you would see on a preliminary title report. So all liens and conveyances, things, monetary judgments, those types of things, and all the easements and CC&Rs and things that are attached to the property. Or if you're only worried about liens and judgments, you can just get a report that has just that. Or if you only want to know about easements because you can't remember if you have one, there's a report for that as well. Or our customer service department, they can provide you with just general information, what the county is showing, who's the owner, what are the taxes, legal description, that type of thing.
Yeah. And so I think for people who have owned properties for decades and may have forgotten, people who may have multiple ownership situations, taking a quick minute, or you think those relationships are going to change, or you've just been told your relationship is going to change, getting those preliminary titles before you have a transaction is, it can be very eye-opening for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. I think for the most part, people know what's attached to them and what's attached to the property. But if they really have no idea, they can purchase that report. And then if they do sell that property within 6 months, then we can credit the amount that they paid for that report towards their closing costs.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. And there's different layers of investigation. I guess it's really kind of an investigation at that point. Yeah.
It really is. So we normally get our reports out within 3 to 5 business days. It just kind of depends on how convoluted the property is. When was the last time it was searched? If it's never been searched, if it's been passed down heir to heir for generations, those reports can take a little bit
Does
longer.
That happen? Do you have properties like that?
Oh, absolutely. Our basement is filled with records. So a lot of things are electronic now, but we have our title plant here on site. So sometimes we're in the basement digging up old maps and deeds, and it's pretty interesting if you're into that type of stuff.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And then I guess if you've had the property for a long time, is it possible that utility easements would have changed and you not know it, maybe? Or are there any of those kinds of, like riverfront, like we're getting ready to list some riverfront property, and those accesses can sometimes change, can't they?
Well, with riverfront, a lot of the times there's some kind of language in there that talks about the actual river, how it can move, so your land may go further out 1 year and then another
and
year,
further in the next.
Further in. Yeah, so they kind of put that into the language of those documents.
I see. So that's
for the most part, I want to say if something's recorded against your property, you're going to get some kind of notification. You're going to get something in the mail.
Yeah. But if for some reason you miss that because you don't get your mail, then Well, and
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm only joking because that's kind of the new trend. A lot of folks, the snail mail is something you only do once a month, maybe. But also for folks that are getting ready to downsize, sometimes as you get older, it's harder to just get to the mailbox. So
Sure.
yeah. So just being prepared, knowing what's going on with your property before you decide to do some kind of transfer with it is definitely a good idea. And you don't have to be in a real estate transaction to do that.
Correct.
So one of the other questions that we get a lot about the title company is the insurance. Like, what is title insurance exactly, and how does that work?
So title insurance is covering the land and ensuring that you, as the owner of the property, are the owner of the property. So, like I said, if you had an heir show up from a previous owner on the new buyer's doorstep and says, "Hey, this property was left to me. Why are you in my house?" The title insurance is going to cover that. That new buyer is the owner of the property, and they're going to make that heir go away. So, and sometimes, there are, we're going to maybe have to pay out if we missed something.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen very often. I can't remember ever even hearing about that situation.
Yeah, I mean, it can happen. Things can get missed, but that's why you have the title insurance, to ensure that you are the owner of the property.
Mm-hmm.
And your lender wants that title insurance to make sure that they're insured, because they're invested in your property. They've lent all this money to you, so they want to be insured. So that's why we have two different title policies. You generally have an owner's policy and a lender's policy.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. That's why I do this every day, and I had completely forgotten there's two policies.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about title and divorces, or when people pass away, power of attorneys. Somebody comes to you and they have a power of attorney. What's the process for that?
We like to see those as soon as possible. So when you've opened up that transaction, that's going to be one of the first things we need to see, is that power of attorney or those trust documents, to make sure that we are dealing with the correct sellers and who can sign on behalf of this property. So if you know that you're going to have a transaction that is going to need power of attorney, or if there is a trust involved, we're happy to take a look at those before you even list the property. But sometimes, we don't find out about it until it's already sold, and that's perfectly fine. We'll review it as soon as possible and move forward. It doesn't normally take very long, but sometimes there's a little bit more research that's needed. We will talk to the people that granted that power of attorney to make sure that that is what they intended. So sometimes there's general power of attorneys and specific power of attorneys, and maybe we'll need to create one in the transaction and have the person that's conveying that power of attorney come into our office. So we'll meet them, make sure they're of sound mind, and that they know why they're signing that document.
So that's very interesting, because not all powers of attorney are useful or applicable in our real estate transactions in Oregon, are they?
Correct. Yeah. Sometimes it's just going to be for medical reasons, not necessarily to sell property. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So I think that's probably news to a lot of people. And we do have a high percentage of our population that's elderly here in Southern Oregon. And people walk around saying, well, I have a power of attorney. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
Yeah, the title company has to vet it. You have to go through it thoroughly. We've also had situations where a particular property was not included in that power of attorney.
Yeah. So maybe we'll create one in the new transaction and have that person that's granting the power of attorney come in and sign that and get notarized and make sure they understand what it's for, and then we can move forward. Happens
now,
all the time.
Is that a power of attorney review? You said that can be done ahead of time. How much ahead of time would you guys like to see those?
Well, We get calls all the time from realtors that are getting ready to list property, and they want to
Uh-huh.
make sure that the correct seller is signing their listing agreement. So they may have the seller of the property at that time come in, bring in their documents, and we'll have our title officer take a look at it. And for the most part, we can move forward with that. But maybe after we've opened up the transaction and new things come to light, we may need more information at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But we're happy to take a look at trust documents and power of attorneys before you even list the property.
Okay, so would you say maybe a week or two ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if we need that much time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's actually
yeah,
pretty quick.
yeah.
So, okay, but a good piece of valuable information, folks. If you have people on your in your estate that are your powers of attorney, or you are someone who's been designated to be someone's signature authority, then we should have the title company look at that ahead of time.
Yeah.
So you
And
mentioned
trust
trust.
documents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so trust can be kind of a sticky wicket.
Right. They're not the most fun to read. So it
Do you
can
guys
be
have to actually read them?
sometimes we do. Sometimes people have a hard time reading legal documents and they just want someone else to take a look. I believe that I'm the trustee. Can you take a look at this? And we'll
Uh-huh.
read through it too. But we want to make sure that when there's a trust involved, that we are dealing with the correct trustees. And sometimes that can get a little convoluted if it's been, from one trustee down to the next trustee. If people have passed away or people have decided they don't want to be the trustee.
Well, and we're going to talk more about that. We've got to take a quick break. Sorry to cut you off. It's so interesting. Brandy Jennings, First American Title. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Do not go away. Well, welcome back, Southern Oregon, to the Real Estate Show. I'm Alice Lema, broker John L. Scott here in Southern Oregon, having such an interesting conversation with Brandy Jennings, First American Title. She's bringing us up to speed on what title companies do, don't do, and some of the finer educational points about getting ready for your transaction. Welcome back, Brandy.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you so much for giving us your time. So right before the break, we were just starting to talk about trust documents in real estate and how they can be kind of tricky. And you were mentioning that somebody at your end actually has to look them over ahead of time.
Yeah. So sometimes people already have a certification of trust, which is a document that we will have you sign that just basically gives us all the general information about the trust. Who is the trustee? Who is the creator of the trust? What's the name of the trust? When was it created? Where was it created? And what are the responsibilities of the trustee? Do they have more than one? Can they both sign on behalf of the trust? Does it just take one of them? So that certification of trust answers all of those questions and lets us know that that is the person that can sign on behalf of the trust. And some people are confused looking at those trust documents, so they may even bring us the whole trust. We don't need the whole thing, but we need the basics about real property, when it's being sold, and who would be the signer.
Well, and I think people get caught by surprise in a transaction because they don't realize that vetting of the trust, just like the power of attorney, all has to happen up front.
Yes. Well, you don't want to go too far into a transaction and realize you're dealing with the wrong people, right? So we're trying to get things done timely and efficiently. And so the sooner we have those documents, the better. There's things like that we ask for sometimes and takes a while to get them, and that can delay your closing. And we always want to close on time per the contract that you guys have given us. And so we ask for some things up front, things like the power of attorney or the trust certification or payoff information. Sometimes we're waiting a while to get that. And so when we send something to our sellers asking for information, the sooner they can get things back to us, the better. Sometimes we're just trying to make sure we're dealing with the right people. There's a lot of people with common names. So we may send a document called a statement of identity, asking you more information about yourself. And what we're trying to do is figure out if certain judgments or liens belong to you or not, and if they should be on that preliminary title report that we're creating for you. So when we ask for things, the sooner we get them, the better. That way we don't have to delay the closing of the property.
So you are really in a role of being a protector. The title company is the one who takes the time to verify who the parties are, that they are the ones allowed to perform these actions. And you're looking out for everybody's best interest.
Yeah, so we are the neutral third party. So we are just trying to make sure that we're handling all the documents, all the funds, and dealing with the correct people. And then we're going to provide that title insurance for the buyer and make sure they know they are the owner of the property. We're going to provide that title insurance for the lender to make sure that their investment in the property is taken care of and secure. But yeah, so that's what we do. We're the neutral third party where we're handling all the money, all the documents, and the transferring of ownership.
And looking out for everybody's best interests. So when there are delays, we just want to be patient because it's a very important job that you are doing on behalf of all of us. And making sure that it's all the way it's supposed to be. And trust can be complicated. And, it's surprising that you guys have to pour through all those pages and validate all that information. People just don't realize how much work that is.
Right. But there's always a lot of due diligence that the buyer has to do on their own because there are certain things we cannot search for. So, we're managing the disbursement of the funds and the documents and ownership of the property. But there are things out there that maybe the reason why they're buying the property is for a certain reason, and they need to talk to the county about that. That's not something that we would search for.
Oh, that's a good point, right?
Yeah. So,
yeah. You're doing the legal and the people part. Yeah. And so going back to the preliminary title report, sometimes things show up on there. You do the searches, that's what the title company does. And sometimes there are easements, there's unexpected liens, judgments, things like that. Let's talk a little bit about where those come from and how they can be eliminated.
Sure. Okay. Well, when someone has a lien or judgment that's attached to them, maybe it's child support, or maybe it's spousal support, or maybe it's an IRS lien, those judgment creditors will record something with the county and it attaches to the name. And sometimes they'll record it against the actual property. So when there's something recorded against the property or the person of ownership, we see that when we do our preliminary title report search. So at that point, when we get that preliminary title report out to everyone, you'll see the recorded document in there, and hopefully they already know about it because I'm sure they've been notified that they owed somebody money, or they're aware that they already have to make a monthly payment for something. But to transfer ownership, we have to make sure that those get cleared. So we need to make sure child support and spousal support are current. If that seller is selling the property, we want to make sure that there's nothing that's going to follow the property. So we're going to make sure that's current. We're going to make sure IRS liens get paid off. Sometimes there's other collections that get thrown in there. But yeah, if it's recorded against the property, we can find it.
And sometimes it's not your debt. We've had that happen a couple of times, right?
Yeah. So that's why that statement of identity would be an important document to give to us if we've asked for it, because maybe your name is John Smith and there are lots of John Smiths in the area. So we're going to try to make sure that only you as John Smith, only your judgments are attached to this particular property, and that we didn't pull someone else's judgments.
And don't panic if something shows up, because it will be taken care of.
Right, exactly.
So in some states, because every state is different, that's the other thing I think people don't understand. In some states, you don't have title and escrow as one company. You either have one or the other, or they lose lawyers. They use lawyers, not lose lawyers. Use lawyers.
Exactly. And I'm not too familiar because I've always been in Oregon, but I do know at the East Coast, they do have attorneys handle the escrow side of things quite often, and then maybe we'll do the title report and provide the title insurance. And then there's places that, will use their E&O insurance. So they will sign all the documents and pass keys and money all on the same day, and then maybe record the documents conveying that property over, months down the road even.
Wow.
Or people that move up here from California, they don't understand how we hold the vesting of the title differently. That's because they're a community property state and we are not. So it's just a little bit different, but for the most part, we're all doing the same thing and we all work together. First American is nationwide, so they definitely know what they're doing across the country. So
well, and that's really handy. Yeah, having a big company like that for people that are relocating, because we have so many people relocating now, to have a First American in every state, practically in the union, it comes in really handy.
Right. We're actually global. So I'm very proud of the company that I work for. We have so much new technology that's coming out. There's a new thing now called remote online notary. We're the only title company that has a
Oh, that's
nationwide.
awesome.
Yeah. So it
What
makes
does
it
that
easy.
mean?
That means if you have a seller that is maybe out of the country or maybe very rural and it's hard for them to get into town to go to the title company to sign that warranty deed that needs to be notarized to convey that property over to the new buyer, we can do it electronically. So there's some steps that are involved to make sure that we are dealing with the correct seller, and we have identification and they answer some knowledge-based questions to make sure they are who they say they are, and then we can actually notarize them electronically, which in the
Wow,
past,
that
that was
is
never something you
great.
could do.
You can
Yeah,
sell your house in your jammies.
it's
Are you
true.
do are you doing that by Zoom or is it
It's not
just
through Zoom. I can't remember the name of the program that they
but
use,
is
but
there a
similar.
facial,
Yes, you
yeah,
can see
a
there.
video?
So the, the remote online notary doesn't actually come up on the screen until that seller has actually went through the questionnaire to verify they are who they say they are. And
Wow.
then the remote online notary will come on and they actually will hold up their ID, and then their equipment can actually scan the codes to
Really? While
confirm.
you're on a
Yes,
video chat?
yes, yeah, it's
Wow.
very cool. And so right now, some lenders are working towards them even accepting loan documents notarized this way. So
Oh, that would
it's
be
coming. We're not
amazing.
quite there yet, I think, with most, but we're definitely moving forward and we're trying to stay right on top of that innovation. So
Wow. Now, how
yeah.
much of that was um, expedited because of the COVID shutdown? Do
Oh,
you
it was most
know?
definitely expedited because of COVID. Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
So how did First American deal with, because you guys still, I mean, we had record number of transactions during the shutdown when everybody was supposed to be home, you guys. You were all supposed to be home. And yet we sold more properties than ever. How did First
We
American
did. We
handle
were so
that?
busy. I feel like we did that way better than we could have ever imagined, considering it was so new. We had some of our staff working from home. Then we sectioned out our offices so that if one part of the office had an exposure, we didn't have to send the entire office home, but then we could switch with the people that were home.
Oh, that's
The
really
people that were
clever.
exposed. Yeah, so we did everything we could. Of course, cleaning, sanitizing. We had our screens up and our masks and just everything we possibly could to try to keep everyone, especially our employees, safe. But we
Yeah.
were
Wow.
very
I didn't know
busy.
you were sectioning off your office. That is so smart because then you don't have to shut down the whole building, in
Yeah,
case that happens again, folks.
it was
That's so
very
smart.
difficult. But we all went through it together, right? I think we did a
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
good
So were
job.
you doing this video chat signing for sale? What's the name of it again? Sorry.
RON Notary, remote online notarization.
Remote online notary authorization. You call it Ron?
Yes.
Okay,
No,
Ron.
yeah. Remote
Okay.
online notarization. Yes.
Okay. I'll have to remember that. But so were you doing that during the shutdown or is this post COVID?
It did get expedited during COVID. Yes. So it
Okay.
wasn't something that was in Oregon at that time when COVID started, but yes, we were able to get that approved. I can't remember how fast it happened, but faster than you would think.
Wow.
And
Wow. Well, you must have
yeah,
had that in the works as a company then, because that's a huge shift.
yeah, it was a huge shift. And, they're always just staying on top of technology, trying to provide the best resources to all of our realtors and lenders and clients. So they probably did already have something in the works, knowing that it was being used in other parts of the nation. So, but yeah, we didn't have it approved in Oregon right away, but it happened pretty quickly.
Well,
And
good job,
now we've had
remote
thousands
online
and
notary.
thousands. What's that?
Wow. I'm just flabbergasted. Remote online notary. And it's just for
Right.
sellers, you said. It's not for buyers yet.
Well, and that's because most lenders haven't figured out how to make that happen because they have a lot of documents in those loan documents that need to be notarized. And so they also need to have an original signature on the note. And even though that doesn't need to be notarized, normally it's all signed at the same time. So lenders are working on moving forward with that. I know there's a couple that do it, but not very many. So it's just
So
very
it's
easy
going to
to.
be lender by lender, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
that
I
is
mean, we've
so
had sellers
cool.
out of the country, or, it came in really handy for them.
Okay,
And
so
if it's
you can be in Bimini on the beach and sell your house with a margarita in your hand.
pretty much
As long as you have good internet. That is just
exactly,
amazing.
it
Wow. Well, I
is.
wonder how long it'll be before we have enough of the mainstream lenders doing remote online notary. That'll be a game changer. You won't even have to come into the office to sign your
Yeah, which
papers
makes me
unless,
kind of sad. I like seeing
yeah.
everybody. When people come in for their signings, that's a very happy time for everyone. It's exciting.
Yeah, it
So
is
I really
noteworthy. It's
enjoy
a
having that.
monumental appointment. Plus, you
Yeah.
guys have ice cream in your lobby. So
We like to celebrate those closings. This is a big transaction. It's a big deal for every person that comes through those doors, and we want to make it a happy and yeah, fun experience. Celebrate with ice cream, breakfast of
yeah.
champions, even.
Yeah, well, I am so impressed with the effort that the company First American is putting forward to start to smooth out and streamline what it can, because real estate
Yeah.
transactions are bumpy and kind of traumatic, even if you're all happy about it and it's all good.
Yeah.
It's just a little, it's just a big process.
Yeah, it can be very emotional.
Yeah, well, and time consuming and paperwork and
Mhm.
what do you need
Mhm.
now? So,
Right.
yeah. So we're talking to Brandy Jennings, First American Title. She's Jackson County Sales Manager. We're discussing what title companies do and don't do. And we're going to have to take a quick break here, get a word from our sponsors in, and then we're going to be back with our last segment with Brandy to talk about escrow. We haven't even had a chance to do that yet. We've been spending all this time talking about title, and there's plenty to talk about. But we will be back briefly. We're brought to you by Guy Giles, Churchill Mortgage, John L. Scott, Ashland, Medford, Southern Oregon, and our local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show. Alice Lema here, broker John L. Scott, beautiful Southern Oregon. If you don't live here now, you should.
Right?
We're talking to Brandy Jennings, First American Title. She's Jackson County Sales Manager, and a wealth of information about what title companies are and do, and how important it is to have a neutral third party involved in your real estate transaction. And that's really the core of what it is that title companies offer, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. So everything that we do here, we're taken by instruction. So we're working as part of your team. Working for the buyer and the seller. You have the realtor and the lender on your team, and then of course your escrow company and escrow officer. So everything that we do is to facilitate the transaction by managing the disbursement of funds and documents. So we're going to handle all the money, all the paperwork, and recording of the documents, and make sure that we are dealing with the correct parties, and whatever we do, we'll do by instruction. So we're not going
It's
to
a
just do
great
things on our own.
it's a fabulous service that you offer. And in some states, we were talking earlier, because in Oregon, title and escrow, even though they're two different processes, you're under one roof. So let's talk about escrow, because that's the part people are more familiar with than title, but they still don't always understand. For example, you brought up money, earnest
Mm-hmm.
money. When you bring your
Yeah.
earnest money in, some people have tried to bring in gold bars. We've had people try to bring in actual $20 bills. Let's talk about how earnest money is best handled.
Well, as you know, your earnest money needs to be deposited at the title company within 3 days of accepting that contract. And so we only take certified funds for the most part. But when it comes to earnest money, normally we're going to be closing, at least in 30 days. So we can take a personal check for earnest money. We have to just make sure that the funds clear before we close on the transaction. So when it comes to your closing funds, we will only accept a wire or like a cashier's check. They must be certified funds. But yes, you're going to bring in the earnest money at the beginning, and then you're going to bring your closing funds at the end, and then we'll record all the documents to convey the ownership and let everybody know it's all been done.
So
It's an exciting time.
now, if somebody wants to bring in a cashier's check, it seems like there are times when there that has to be held. So what's
Oh,
the
sure.
backstory on that?
Well, we normally like to have the certified funds in the bank for 24 hours. There are times where we'll receive a certified check or cashier's check from an out-of-state bank. And so we may need a little bit more time. We just have to make sure that those funds clear before we close the transaction. We can't commingle funds or anything like that. So the money that's for this transaction, we need to actually have in the bank for us to move forward. So.
And the earnest money folks, if you bring in a check, they're going to cash it.
Yes, exactly.
They don't hold it. We've had people say, I didn't know they were going to cash the check.
And we do have a great program too. If you have someone that is out of the area and maybe they can't make it over to the First American in time to deposit that check, we can do an electronic deposit of that through an app that we have.
Oh, how does
we have
that
a
work?
lot of great programs. We have a program called Zocum where they download the app and they create an account and their own little security code.
Really?
And they'll go through, they'll find First American, and then they'll find the local First American branch and fill in some information about the transaction. Who's their realtor? What's the property address? Who's the other party in the transaction? Take a picture of their check, and it pretty much instantly deposits.
Oh, that's amazing. I did not know that. Wow. Wow. Yeah. So you do a personal check and take a picture of it just like you do on some of the banking apps.
Right. Exactly.
And then you can deposit your earnest money that way?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. Are you doing direct transfers yet through Venmo or Zelle or anything like that? That's probably not quite. Okay.
No
problem.
We do have realtors that pick up their commission checks, and we can do an ACH deposit for them if they bring us in signed instructions. We can do it that way for the realtor commission. Some realtors come in and pick up their checks, so we can do an ACH deposit, and then they don't have to come in, although we like them coming.
Well,
we like seeing everybody now that we can.
Yeah, that's handy. So going back to the earnest money deposit on the app, I'm fascinated by that because we have, so many home buyers now that are millennial youngers and, they don't even have checks.
Right. That does make it hard. They do need to have a check for that one.
Well, yeah, it's kind of
go to the bank. They might as well just wire it then or get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can wire your earnest money then, correct?
You can. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. But there's a fee for that sometimes.
Sometimes it depends on the bank. Some banks will.
So not you guys don't charge.
No, we don't charge.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if you're doing the deposit on the app, can it be a cashier's check? Well, then you have to go to the bank anyway. I'm just trying to avoid going to the bank apparently.
Yeah. So hopefully they have a check. I think most people still have a check just in case. But yeah, you're right. Not everyone does. But yeah, we do everything that we can to make sure everything is secure. When you have a transaction with us. And one thing I want to bring up, there's a lot of cyber fraud happening these days, wire fraud. So we like to do a lot of our communication with our buyer, seller, realtor, lender through our secure portal. So when you open up a transaction with First American and we give us an email address, we will invite you into First American Securities to where you can create an account through our secure portal, chat with your escrow officer through that portal, and not have to worry about your email getting hacked. So these hackers have gotten really good. They'll see, sales price, and somehow, they have these little code words that make it to where they know there's a transaction, and then they'll pretend to be an escrow officer. They'll make up a fake email that says it's First American, and if you don't highlight over it and look where it's really coming from, it may look like it's coming from us. They've gotten really good. So you can avoid all that if you use the secure portal, actually create that account, and then you can chat with us. You can upload documents, sign some documents. Yeah, I would recommend always trying to use the securities that we invite you into.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's very forward thinking. So you have an app, so we would deposit their earnest money on. You have high security portal for the transaction, which is really impressive. And you have this, what did you call it? The not non-notary, but remote notary. What was
the remote online notary.
Right. So for sellers right now, you do not have to go to the title company, even if you live next door to the title company.
But they want to come in because they want ice cream.
But you should. Plus it's just fun. You probably don't have very many real estate episodes in a lifetime. So it is fun to make it special, and getting to the finish line is a big deal.
Definitely.
So
Yeah,
one of
so
the,
I, you know,
oops, go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead. I just wanted to just reiterate, you know, when your escrow officer asks for something, and hopefully it's through the secure portal, that you get us that information, you know, payoff information or trust
Oh, let's
information or
talk about
things of that nature.
payoffs. What is
Yes.
payoff?
Well, if you're making a mortgage payment right now on your home, we need to know exactly what's owed so that we can take care of it through the escrow. Because when you work with us and we handle the escrow of your transaction, we're going to create a final settlement statement that talks about that shows you all the costs that are involved in your transaction. So, you know, what you're buying or selling for and how much the title insurance and your part of the escrow fee is, what the recording fees are, what's the real estate commission. You know, we'll prorate the taxes and any homeowners association dues or utilities, like, you know, irrigation, things like that. So we're going to create that settlement statement for you, but we need to put the payoff on there, and we need to be able to from your lender. And in order for us to do that, we need authorization from you. So that's one of the
Yeah,
first
so
things.
don't wait. When the title company says
Yeah.
something, do it. Well, Brandy, we're going to have you on again. We're almost out of time. Great interview, Brandy Jennings, First
Thank you.
American Title. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful weekend, folks. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.